Why, hello folks out there. It's Wednesday, 1:30 in the morning, and we're now past July 4th holiday. And we are over halfway through the year of 2021 already. And after the year 2020 happened with the pandemic, I've been wanting to make this video about the archive world, just putting into perspective what is happening in the United States and out there in the world. So, what is an archivist? What is the point of an archivist? An archivist's job is to preserve media, organize it, to categorize it. And a lot of archivists are professionals out there. Some archivists are hobbyists like myself. A lot of them work in materials from the last century. They work on VHS, Betacam, film. There are many categories of professional archiving services out there that offer, from companies, organization tools, team efforts in all of our public institutions and government and libraries. And the reason I'm saying this is that we have a crisis at our hand. The title of this video that I put down on this is "Who is going to save America's tapes?" And that's the really unfortunate thing about it. And so we're at a point where the 8mm format, the 16mm format, film photography is over a century old. A lot of film out there that you can find, the 8mm film, amateur recorded film, all across America and stuck in somebody's basement. That's 50, 60 years old now. Our VHS tapes are now a 40-year-old technology. Our reel-to-reel is now 50, 60 years old from the 1960s and 70s. We are at a point where anything that existed in the analog world 50 years from now may not be here anymore from the 20th century. And there are museums, there's public institutions out there that have vast amounts of money. They are given millions and millions of dollars from the federal government, from state and local governments, local counties, to archive and preserve historic artifacts from the 18th century, 17th century, ancient Egyptian. There is every single archival category. But for some reason, there seems to be no funding or support for archiving mid-century material from the mid-20th century. And we're at a crossroads point right now where if we don't save the reel-to-reel, if we don't save 8mm tapes, if we don't save these VHS tapes that are just lying around from the 60s, 70s, 80s, then they are going to be gone in 30, 40 years from now. And the unfortunate part about it is that you have archival studios with gigantic amounts of funding, gigantic resources with the best film scanners, 4K film scanners, the best reel-to-reel decks they have the money to create workflow environments that could save these tapes, but they're just not doing it. You ask any museum out there, public institution, very few of them, if in fact I would say none of them, are working with amateur recorded tapes, amateur recorded video, home videos. So as far as these public institutions go, the museums, the professional companies out there that do archival work and have millions of dollars of backing, they don't bother really with amateur or home videos, cassette tapes, underground bands, 8mm home videos. They don't really waste their time doing that because there's no money to be made in saving somebody's moldy tapes in their basement. You know, they work for prestigious institutions, national archives, but you're not going to find your grandma's basement tapes in the National Archives. And it's just really unfortunate that there are so much 8mm footage, reel-to-reel, cassette audio that is just sitting in people's basements across America and across the world, collecting dust, and no one is paying to archive them because there's no money to be made in doing it. I mean, you go on eBay and you see the amount of tapes that people are just dumping like they're pieces of trash that are going for pennies on the dollar, and it's sick. It makes me sad. And the reason they're going for pennies on the dollar is because it's almost impossible to get good results out of them and do it financially feasibly. Because the 4K film scanners and the 2K film scanners, you can't find anything for under 10 grand. That's because there's no high demand for it. People don't care about this stuff. And so that's what motivated YouTubers like me. We have to go out there and spend basically our entire paychecks to gather up just historic footage, an immense amount of basement tapes that you can find, audio tapes, reel-to-reel tapes that would be lost to the world unless an amateur archivist like us, who don't do it for the money, go out and save these historic pieces of history from the 20th century. My concern is that we're running out of time, because in 30, 40 years, the film stock is going to be warped. It's going to be brittle. You're not going to be able to preserve it. The nitrate film is going to be burned and blown up. It's going to be vinegar syndrome all over the place from the acetate films. And then the reel-to-reel tapes, you're going to get print through like no tomorrow. And it's just really unfortunate. So as far as the professional archivists go, and this is partially what motivated me to start doing this myself because of the cost. They're charging, and I kid you not, the professionals out there, the pros, are charging $1 per foot for 8mm film that's scanned at 4K. $1 per foot. I think that's a bit excessive, because they're charging these prices just because they can, because they know that no one else can afford these scanners. Nobody else knows how to do it. So they're going to charge $1 per foot. And in consequence, the only serious customers that they have really are government institutions, gigantic corporations that have the funding and money to archive their tapes. And it's such a shame that people are putting monetary value on pieces of history that have a limited lifespan on them from the 20th century. Because if we don't save and archive these analog footage, this analog audio in the next 20, 30 years, it's all going to be gone. And money's not going to matter at that point because there's going to be nothing left. And it just ticks me off. And you can go on eBay. eBay's probably the worst offender of this, of people selling junk for outrageous prices. But it's really detrimental to history. It is just absolutely detrimental. Because it's preventing someone like me that if you had priced it at, say, $20 instead of $500, maybe I would have saved it and preserved it and uploaded it online. But now I can't do that because you've priced it and you've wanted monetary value placed on history. Because you just want to make money. That's all you see is dollar signs. And the professional archivists out there, the pro companies and the pro transfer houses, act in the same manner. They want outrageous amounts of money to do bare minimum work just because they can, because they have no other competition. Nobody else can do it. And I mean, honestly, I can scan 4K 8mm footage for $10 a tape. Drop them off at my place. If somebody wants to give me $10,000 right now, I will archive all 8mm tapes for free. For free, all of your tapes. Just give me $10,000. You see what I'm saying? It's an unfortunate circle story and a rabbit hole that you cannot get out of. We are destroying history by placing a monetary value on what we need to preserve. And the pros are not doing it. The pros are not saving and wasting time on amateur recorded video because there's no money to be made. And that is why I so appreciate channels like Oddity Archive and Anna Dialogue and all of these people who care about preserving obscure material that no one else would care about, no professional transfer house would care about. And it's unfortunate. It breaks my heart. It really does. The amount of stuff that you can see just getting destroyed, collecting mold, collecting dust in people's basements that you can't afford to save, it just breaks my heart. Because when you think about it, these are people's relatives, right here. These are people's grandparents or great-grandparents that they can't save because they can't afford to save them. And no one else is going to bother with them. So that is a motivator. That is a huge motivator of people like me and people like a lot of the archival studios out there who basically are spending every single ounce of their pocketbook, their extra change, to save pieces of history. They are amateur hobby archivists, and they upload material to YouTube. And it's just incredible. I am more powerful than someone with $1 billion. I am more powerful than a museum or the National Archives with all of their money and resources and funding. They don't bother with the material or tapes that I'm archiving. They just don't put any time or effort into it because there's no money to be made. And that's the saddest part. Because some of the coolest footage out there that you can find is from amateur recorded video. On the street, raw footage, cities from the 1940s and 50s, footage from America's past. We are losing it very quickly. And that is why I promote and recommend that everyone who has extra money to buy up as much as you can and preserve it and save it in the highest resolution possible. Because in 20 or 30 years from now, we're going to wish we had acted sooner. We're not going to be able to save these tapes for the next generation if we disregard them right now because of money or monetary value. And that is basically the most unfortunate part about the archive world. That the coolest stuff is often what no one cares about or where there's no funding to preserve it. Unless you're backed by the National Archives or a $1 million museum. And even the museums, they buy up a bunch of bulk and then they throw them in their cellars in their basement and they never see the light of day. It's a humbling thought that someone like you or me can save pieces of history and a National Archives $1 billion museum can't do that, but we can. I think that's a very humbling and important thought that we should consider about our relatives past from the last century. And maybe we should start looking at the 20th century like we look at the 1700s and 1800s. It's unfortunate that there is not as much love or funding for preserving history from the 20th century as there is from the centuries before that. Because we're quickly getting to the point where the stuff that we can save is dwindling in numbers, either because of mold, vinegar syndrome, water damage, fires. We are losing so much every day. The time is ticking. And that's been my experience. And that's why I created this channel. But it's been thousands and thousands of dollars in the hole. I can't, if this isn't a cancer charity, I can't go on the street and ask for donations, Nobody, I have to fund this out of my own pocket. And I feel like this is something that I should do because no one else is going to do it. And that's what this channel is all about. Anyways, folks, I hope you have a good one. And archive as much as you can. Preserve your family's history. Don't throw out your VHS tapes. Send them to me. My address is 29 Chestnut Hill Road, Chelmsford, Massachusetts, 01824. My email is benklesc@aol.com. And I will preserve and archive your footage for free if you let me keep the footage to use on this channel. Because I am all about preserving and sharing with the world. I don't believe in monetary value or archiving something only to hold it on, to sell it, to resell it, because it is a piece of history. And I will happily save your tapes for free. Send them to me. Send everything to me and I will do it. I mean, that's what we literally have to do. We have to beg. That's what this channel is for, and you can expect 8mm 4K scanned film footage coming soon to a theater near you, and reel-to-reel and cassette tape. As much money as I have to spend is as much as I can get out of this. So I am being patient with it. I'm taking as long as I have to. And this is the state of the archive world we're in today. Who is going to save America's tapes? Is it going to be you? Is it going to be me? You can do it too, baby. You can do it too. Ah, geez Louise. See you, folks, and happy archiving.